I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're Autosave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching Madoka Magica, Season 1, Episode 4. I'm very excited.
I'm also very excited.
On the edge of my seat waiting to be able to watch this next episode. Doesn't matter which seat I'm on. That could be a church pew. I'm on the edge of it. I don't know. I'm really into this series so far. There's something that I love about, like, I don't know what it is. There's something I love about just the vibe that doesn't seem like it does it justice of shows that fit into the same vein of like this and Steins Gate. There's like a grittiness or graininess to not only the visual elements but the story, and it's way more twisted than I ever thought it would be, and it just keeps me guessing, and there's chairs everywhere for no reason in Madoka's mom's room, and I love it. And it's fucked up. Mommy's is probably dead, right?
Probably, most definitely. I would say that's how I feel, at least.
Every morning before my eyes open, I see Kyubey in my head, just with his dead red self.
Do you think that we're going a little bit too harsh on Kyubey?
Probably, yeah.
I maybe we should keep, give him the benefit of the doubt. He is some alien creature that isn't human. Maybe there are some more lovable qualities other than seemingly no emotional reaction to this magical girl he made a contract with dying.
I'm not judging him on his character because I don't know enough.
Yeah.
I'm judging him based on the quick cuts to him that last less than a second, and it's a close-up of his eyes. That's what I'm going off of purely. Oh, also, we are watching on Crunchyroll now. We were watching on Funimation before. I dislike watching things on Funimation. I think their UI is like, I don't know, not for me. But when we were trying to find Madoka Magica on Crunchyroll, it said that it was available in Japanese but without subtitles. But after, being told from moderators, oh wait, no, just like watch a second of it, idiot. The subtitles show up. And yeah. So that's what we're doing now.
Here we are.
Yeah. Ready?
Yeah.
Sweet.
I'm so excited right now.
I just kept myself from saying that.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't keep it in. Release it. It's the hospital.
Yeah. Kamijo's gone.
He's a difficult case.
Encouragement.
He needs encouragement to get better.
Before the accident, child prodigy. That's fucking horrific. Jesus, you're a kid, too.
Were they together when the accident happened?
Oh my god. Whew.
Those harsh words from mommy are really like hitting her now. Of why would you give your wish to him? Is it because you want some sort of like praise or reaction from him?
Literally me.
Mm-hmm. Golden like mommy's hair.
What's the score?
I wonder what happens when a magical girl dies in this way. Do people just forget her existence?
Wow. How interesting that Sayaka like runs up while saying that telepathically.
他のみんなは何も知らない。違うものを見て暮らしているようなもんじゃない。さやかちゃん、僕の昔に変わっちゃってたんだ。
Whew.
と早くに気づくべきだったんだよ。私たち今でもまだ魔法少女になりたい。
Oh my god, Cube.
そうだよね。仕方ないよ。ずるいって分かってるの。今さら虫が良すぎだよね。
I just can't.
私あんな死に方今思い出しただけ怖いよ。
I don't want that.
Wow.
本当に優しい人だったんだ。どういう覚悟がいるのか私たちに思い知らせる。あの
To
人
make us understand what type of resolve we'd need.
ねえキューベ、この町どうなっちゃうのかな。これから誰がみんなを魔女から守ってくれる。ここはマミのテリトリーだったけど
Wow.
他の魔法少女が黙ってないよ。 すぐにも他の子が魔女狩りのためにグリーフシードだけが目当てのやつなんでしょ。確かにマミみたいなタイプは珍しかった。報酬は欲しいさ。じゃあでもそれを非難で、それは同じ魔法少女としての運命を背負った子だ
The
け
only
ど、
ones that can judge.
僕だって無理強いはできない。僕はまた僕との契約を必要としている子を探しに行かないと。
Girls with greater need.
ごめんねキューベ。ありがとう。一緒にいて楽しかったよマドカ。
Jesus.
ごめんなさい。私弱い子でごめんなさい。ホムラちゃん、あなたは自分を責めすぎているわ。要まどか、あなたを非難できる者なんていたら私が許さない。忠告聞き入れてくれたのね。私がもっと早くにホムラちゃんの言うこと。巴マミの運命が変わったわけじゃないわ。私は嬉しい。マミさんとは別の意味でベテランって感じだよね。否定はしない。誰かが死ぬとこ何度も見てきたの。そうよ。
Where are we?
くらい数えるのを諦めるほど。
Jesus.
Many.
ずっとあのままなのかな。遠い親戚しか身寄りがいないわ。
It's like you have to cast off your family
失
for
踪
this.
届が出るのはまだ当分先でしょうね。そんなこと気づかないの。
What about the school?
仕方ないわ。向こう側で死ねば死体だって残る。世界
There's no
彼女は
body.
永遠に行方不明
She'll
者
just-
のまま少女の最後なんて。
All magical girls meet.
Eventually.
ひどいよ。ずっと一人ぼっちで戦ってきた人
What
な
a
のに
shot.
なんでそんなの寂しすぎるよ。私たちはこの力を手に入れたの。誰のためでもない。自分自身の祈りのために。
We fight for the sake of our own wishes.
誰も気づかれなくても忘れ去られてもそれは仕方のないことだわ。私は覚えてる。マミさんのこと絶対に。そう、巴マミは幸せよ。羨ましいほどだわ。ホムラちゃんだって、ホムラちゃんのことだって私は忘れないもん。くれたこと絶対忘れたりしないもん。あなたは優しすぎる。その優しさがもっと大きな悲
That
しみを呼び寄
kindness
せ
may
る。
bring about an even greater tragedy.
The audio is insane in this show. Score.
It's like they're given like sectioned off scenes and they're like, make it stand alone.
素敵な曲だよね。こんなだからさ、クラシックなんて聞く柄じゃないだろ。たまに曲名とか言い当てたらすごい驚かれるんだよね。尊敬されたりしてさ。京介が教えてくれたから、ちゃんと聞こうと思うきっかけなんて多分一生なかっただろうし。
さやかはさ、さやかは僕をいじめてるのかい。僕に音楽なんか聴かせるんだ。嫌がらせの
Jeez.
つもりなのか。
だって京 介音楽好きだから。
もう聞きたくなんかないんだよ。で弾けもしない曲ただ聴いてるだけなんて僕は。
Oh my god.
痛みさえ感じない。こんな手なんて。
諦めなければきっといつか。
諦めろって言われたのさ。もう演奏は諦めろってさ。から直々に言われたよ。今の医学じゃ無理だって。僕の手はもう二度と動かない。奇跡か魔法でもない限り治らない。
Miracles.
Magic.
あるよ。奇跡も魔法も。
I have chills. That was haunting.
ひとみちゃん、今日はお稽古事。
Oh, fuck.
You're gonna have a really great need now to make a contract.
かなめさん、ごきげんよう。ねえ、どこ行こうとしてたの？どこってそれはもうずっといい場所。
No.
かなめさんもぜひご一緒に。そうですわ。それが素晴らしい。どうしよう。
Look at how she's walking. What
It's
the
'cause Mommy's not
fuck?
there. The magical girl of this territory is
This
gone.
many people so quick?
小村ちゃんに連絡できためだ。携帯の番号わかんない。
そうだよ。俺、ダメなんだ。小さな工場一つ満足に切り盛りできなかった。俺の居場所なんてあるわけ
Locking
ないん
them
だ。
in.
いいかマドカ、この手のものにはとんでもないことになるものもある。私ら家族全員あの世行きだ。絶対に間違えんなよ。
What the fuck?
あれは神聖な儀式です。
あれ危ないんだよ。ここにいる人たちみんな死んじゃうよ。私たちはこれからみんなで素晴らしい世界
What
だ。
the fuck?
それがどんなに素敵なことかわかりませんか。体なんて邪魔なだけですわ。かなめちゃんもすぐにわかりますから。
Oh my god.
Now they're gonna attack her. Oh, it needs a key. No? That's terrifying!
Oh, what the
Oh, no.
fuck?
Oh no. No! And she's just a human!
What? What? This is so
She's coming to
fucked
see
up.
it all of last episode. Sayaka did it.
Sayaka.
She made the contract.
これでとどめだ。 危機一髪ってとこだったね。さやかちゃん。
Sayaka is the coolest ever.
まあ何、心境の変化っていうのかな。初めてにしちゃうまくやったでしょ、私。でも。あなたは。遅かったじゃない、転校生。
Holy shit. Holy shit.
please be good for him.
まさか君が来るとはね。なんなのよ。ちょっと話が違うんじゃない。悪いけどこの土地にはもう新しい魔法少女がいるんだ。こんな絶好の縄張りミスミスルーキーのひよこにくれてやるってのも尺だよね。どうするつもりだい京子。
Kyoko.
決まってんじゃん。要するにぶっ潰しちゃえばいいんでしょ。その子。
I fucking hate Kyoko. Kyoko is a piece of shit. Okay, that was Madoka Magica Season 1, Episode 4. I want to talk about things in a chronological, nice order. But, fuck Kyoko. She sucks. What a awful person. Trash character.
Did you like that shot where it was her
No, I
smiling, but
hated it.
instead they turned it?
Everything. I hated it.
Normally you like creative shots, so, you know, is it just a bias because you love Sayaka? As soon as she brought that bat, you were like, this is my favorite character in the show so far. And now that this character is saying mean things about him, which we'll get into because we're going in chronological order. That's why I said mean things and not specifics. Is that, do you have a bias here? Is this the reaction of a bias?
No.
No.
Start of the episode. Man, I
With Sayaka.
love Sayaka. Unrelated to what you just said. I love Sayaka. Also, I love shows that aren't afraid to change the aspect ratio. I don't know if it's because we've switched from Funimation. Funimation is the Kyoko in this world. Okay, now that we switched from Funimation, everything looks better to me. I don't know if that's biased too, but the resolution looks fantastic. I love when a show isn't afraid to switch up aspect ratio, and I loved the entire intro to this episode. I think that bringing up the idea that Kamijo is using or having to do physical therapy this early on in the episode is very important to recognize later on in the episode as well.
I would agree. There seems to be a transition of thought here in terms of what his potential of recovery is to what we kind of learn it is later in the episode. Therefore, a transition between Sayaka being like, yeah, no, to obviously what inevitably happens. Like, we get lines from the nurses about how in their opinion, he needs encouragement in order to get better, and that Sayaka is good for him. So it almost seemed like from the nurse's language, that if he was really putting his all into getting better and had that support and encouragement, he could completely recover. That is at least like what I got from the nurses initially in watching the episode.
I do wonder what chronologically happened, if physical therapy, this instance of it, happened before or after he had a conversation with the doctor, because I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because my point is that I feel like doing physical therapy and then being told or have already been told is proof to yourself potentially where your ability could ever be. It could reaffirm the horrifying thought that I'm never going to be able to do this again.
The only evidence that could be utilized to decide whether the conversation with the doctor happened after our initial Sayaka moment in the episode, could be his reaction to the music, his immediate change of kind of personality and emotions to smashing the CD recorder, the CD player. That could be evidence that he recently heard this from the doctor.
Yeah.
But that's just, who knows, actually.
Or it could have been like a boiling point.
Could have been a boiling point. It could have been this whole time he's been trying to stay encouraged and trying to stay hopeful, and then he just got to a point by Sayaka's encouragement, like her hopeful attitude, her continuous saying that everything's going to be okay and bringing him music, that he got to a boiling point.
I definitely want to talk about it more when we get there, because there's given actual lines of dialogue in front of us that I think could add to what the truth would be in that moment. But I definitely wanted to read some dialogue here from Sayaka, or monologue here, because I want to know more about what happened to Kamijo.
An accident.
Yeah. And Sayaka here says, why did it have to be Kamiko who got hurt in the accident? My fingers work perfectly, but what good are they? And then it goes, why couldn't it have been me instead of Kyosuke? You brought up an interesting point that does it at all give off the impression that Sayaka was around when the accident happened? And it's very hard for me to say that I'm leaning one way or another, given the idea that we saw Sayaka in the crowd, and it seems like Sayaka was the one being introduced to a bunch of this stuff from Kamijo. So it doesn't necessarily give me 100%. Oh, they were friends growing up. They were close. It could also be like a fan kind of relationship.
Right. Like, is it survivor's guilt? Like, she was in the accident or with him at the time, or was some type of device used that, you know, led him to be where the accident happened? Or is it just she views herself as someone who has had no suffering happen to her, as we know from, you know, time monologues that she's had in previous episodes. She views herself as, what was it, a fool is the language that she used, that she has never had anything testing her. She has just been living every day as mundane and happy as possible, doing whatever she wants to do and not being held back by anything, not having any big emotional burdens or baggage on her. And it could just be out of care and love for him that she feels some responsibility of not being able to relieve him of that, but also like, he had so much potential. I don't really. Why couldn't it have been me who it wouldn't have affected?
Yeah.
If I had lost mobility in my hands, it wouldn't have affected me the same way.
People who need it more.
People who need it more. Which is what I'm leaning towards right now, because I think there would need to be more evidence to say for sure that she is some type of reason why the accident happened or was there, and it's a survivor's guilt feeling. I think it's more about emotional, like, love for Kamijo.
Yeah.
Is why she's like, he was amazing. I love classical music now. He was able to play, and he was beautiful at playing, and I don't have such talents. I'm not a prodigy of anything.
Well, you could see the beauty that Kamijo saw in it throughout playing and the joy that it brought him. And now knowing that that isn't existing in front of you or him anymore, and that's not able to be present, do the closest thing to it and share in the aspect of listening to music, which was happening. I wanted to talk about one line specifically before the intro drops, and that's Sayaka saying, "I'm such a horrible person." And then what comes after, I thought was amazing. Now that I think about it, I really didn't understand anything back then. Neither what it meant to pray for a miracle, nor the price of one. Like, back then, I'm not even thinking necessarily when the accident occurred, because it can apply to then too. But knowing what the cost of or the price of a miracle is in specific terms of Kyubey becoming a magical girl, what it means, like what the contract of giving being able to wish for anything would mean in return.
Right. You're not creating this wish to be able to go and fight and protect people, to become a magical girl. It's to protect the wish that you wanted originally, that you desired. No one had the wish really to be a magical girl, except maybe once we meet Madoka. Everyone else seemingly had some type of deep in their heart, more probably selfish wish, maybe not, that then is the reason why they do this. And why they continue to fight. And that's why you would have infighting between magical girls.
Yeah. Because
they're not working as a team, which is that you have brought up, like, what are the differences between this to, like, another magical girl anime. You work as a team in other shows, even if you don't really get along and you're not best friends which we've talked
You have
about
a common
before.
enemy.
You have a common enemy, and the power of friendship and the power of just like loving other people, you get through it together and you fight together. We're being set up in this world here where there's a common enemy, yes, but you cannot be a team because you're all fighting for your own wish
Yeah.
and to keep it alive.
At 4:01 in the episode, I had written it down that that I thought that the shading was really interesting on this character, and I would have to look at like comparisons to other shows that I've compared to this, but it's specifically like chin shading or face shading, right?
Mhm.
Like the left side of Madoka's face here. This
Super
is
dark.
so interesting.
And it even has line art.
Yeah. So are you trying to show a contour by using shade being given from Madoka's own hair, or is this a harsh shape that they're shining light on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I
didn't
love
really
it.
notice it the first 3 episodes, but in this episode I have been thinking about it more. Like, okay, what is the purpose of putting line art around the shading?
It's so cool because because it's obviously we're given the right side of her face, or I guess her left, like of how shading would be, or her, the color of her neck, but then the line art around this like further contour, that it's so cool. I don't know.
The same method is not used really anywhere else except the faces.
Yeah.
It's only used on the faces. Like the neck has like kind of the traditional, just a couple lines, but it's not used anywhere else where your line art, you're like blocking in a color shading.
Yeah. The entire like beginning when we see Madoka with her family and she's just breaking down, I didn't know how we were going to advance into the next episode, specifically after something so big and traumatic like mommy dying was. But the tragedy of that was touched on again later in the episode too, of they're little girls and she just watched mommy's head get bit
Mhm.
off, no body,
Right.
nothing to mourn, and you have to be alone in this.
Right. I mean, from that scene of her crying in front of her parents at the breakfast table, it is what you probably had similar thoughts to me. I believe I said something in reactionary to that moment. Like, do people remember
Mhm.
mommy? Like, does your existence? Because we've seen it before in other shows that there's a form of death in a fantastical world where people could forget you exist. We've seen it before, so I'm easily just grabbing that from somewhere in my brain, being like, and trying to apply it. Like,
Mhm.
okay, well, are we going to be on a search for mommy? And is there going to be a funeral? Do people know that she died? How do we cover this up? Do people just forget? And those thoughts and questions started in this moment of Madoka crying but not opening up to her parents, because she seemingly has a pretty close relationship with her parents.
Yeah.
That I feel like this girl could totally be like, Mom and Dad, one of my friends died. Like, if it wasn't a total secret of like, mommy goes to her school. She could be like, a girl that went to my school died.
But then it's like, how do you know that? Oh, I saw it happen. Where did it happen? In a labyrinth. This girl's missing and you saw her die. We're gonna take this
get
to the
you.
police. Madoka's
I
arrested.
get
Like-
you, but it's like, that's what opened up the
Yeah,
fact
yeah.
that there needs to be something different. Like, the body's never
Yeah.
found, or
Man.
this is a person who had no ties, no close relatives.
Jesus, it's so lonely. Like, obviously, we touch on it with Homura later on, and the idea of like people won't remember you, and Madoka saying like, "I'm gonna remember you too, not just mommy."
Mm-hmm. That scene, I definitely have a question for you from that specific scene with Homura and
Yeah.
Madoka. So I can either ask it
Go
now,
for it now.
or my question is, and I think that it's pretty relevant to the entirety of the episode, why is Homura here? If this is mommy's territory, and other magical girls do not encroach on other magical girls' territory very often, why is Homura here? Why did she transfer?
It could literally be anything. We haven't seen Homura's house, you know?
Mhm.
We don't know if she's living with extended family or it doesn't I understand you because it doesn't necessarily give off a Kyoko
Yeah.
asshole like situation that it's like, oh, I came here because Kyubey told me to. I do think it's a possibility though. Like I
She
obviously
could have followed
Homura,
him or something.
Hmm?
Even she could have followed him or something. Even.
yeah, maybe we don't know how long Kyubey was around Mommy, but it could be like something akin to tracking Kyubey and trying to kill Kyubey as we
Ooh,
saw
okay.
earlier in the series. But it's interesting because we're not really seeing Homura tailing a specific mission here other than kind of looking out for Madoka
Uh-huh.
and Sayaka, but her presence is here. That can't be ignored.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a big mystery for me.
I-
We don't know her wish.
Right. We don't know her wish. I'm leaning towards the idea that she's here because of Madoka. Because Madoka has a fated dream with her at the beginning, the night before she meets Homura and Homura transfers and has her first day at school, and then she immediately calls Madoka out of the classroom
Yeah.
and basically gives her her opinion and like her warning. And her warning is so integral that we then bring it up again in this episode of like, I'm glad you heeded my warning. I have like, it makes me believe that that has to be the reason that Homura is here. Maybe because she was trailing Kyubey and has a hatred toward Kyubey turning girls into magical girls. I can get behind that. I can easily get behind that. But I could also, they could convince me that she's here because of Madoka. Like she had a dream about Madoka too. or
Oh,
something.
interesting.
Like, they could
That could be
easily
cool.
convince me of that.
I was operating under a circumstance that's like, oh, what if it's just Homura was transferred here, she's in front of the class, and she can see that potential, like,
Mhm.
aura, you know, and is like, oh, fuck, this is bigger potential than majority of people I've seen. It's only a matter of time before they're this girl's preyed on by Kyubey.
Mhm.
I'm going to give her a warning.
I mean, Homura is a really interesting character to have with knowing all the magical girls. Like, we get told that Mommy is rare and Mommy is different in comparison to the magical girls, and Homura is definitely that way too. She doesn't want to work as a team and share, which we've seen from Mommy. Mommy offered, some of the grief seed, that what was left, and Homura didn't take it, like that was yours. But she's trying so hard to stop other girls from becoming magical girls, but seemingly not for the reason you would think by this dynamic that's been created with magical girls infighting.
Mm,
Seemingly not because she doesn't want competition for her wish,
yeah.
but seemingly because she doesn't want other people to, in the same way that Mommy was protecting them, like, I want you to have the luxury of choice.
Mhm.
I want you to fully understand the resolve you will need
Yeah.
in order to do this. I think that Homura, I can't wait to kind of get to know her better, because this is opening up really interesting territory.
Both Mommy and Homura, through their own ways, were trying to save potential magical girls, rather than just the people who were given witches' kisses.
Yeah. In Mommy's way, it was both to kind of reflect on something she regrets about herself, but also kind of selfishly, deal with the isolation and the loneliness factor.
Do you think that Homura has more information than we do? Or do you think Homura has a harsher stance than Mommy did? Like, the obviously the situation Mommy was in when she made a wish, she would have ample, she would have a lot of reason to have a lot of disdain for the wish and what it would mean for her. But she is just, all she asks is that future people will be given the space and time in order to make their decision.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with Homura, does she know more about, like, imagine going up to somebody and saying, if somebody comes to you and tells you can wish for anything ever, never fucking take that wish. Like, that would be a hard sell.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than Mommy being like, you just got to think about if it's worth taking, you know,
Mhm.
that risk for the wish, which
Right.
seems a lot more reasonable almost. But that like lends itself in my head. Is there potential that Homura would know more information about the aspects of what this wish is and what comes of it? You know?
I think that it's, at least to the viewer, at least from the first episode and first meeting of Homura, it does seem like she has more knowledge, obviously, than our main character, and it obviously more than us, because
Yeah.
we're being introduced to the story through Madoka. But it does seem, it just comes, she has an air about her that seems like she knows a lot, and we haven't even like dug barely anywhere. We're still very shallow in terms of like learning what she knows. That's the aura she has about her. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's just how she comes across. She probably knows things. That's just what I'm gonna go with.
I definitely think, like, especially later in the episode when they're talking about how much death Homura has seen,
The
then I'm like,
experience.
okay, of course this has been going on for a long time within Homura's life, or if it hasn't, it's she's seen a lot in what little time has been there. But the disdain for this process, like that Homura has, and then on the other side of the coin, you have Sayaka making a wish for Kamijo to be able to be back to what he was previously.
Mhm.
I wonder if like it is a monkey's paw with the wish. If it's only like if the wish is only granted for a certain amount of time, or as long as this doesn't happen, or but it will take a toll, and that could cause Homura's further disdain. Like, we still don't know Homura's wish. If she wished for her parents to be safe and not die in this car accident, like I'm assuming Mommy's parents might have, then what if it's like, okay, they didn't die in that car accident, but they were shot the next day, or there was another
Well,
car accident
yeah.
the next day?
You can't undo fate. I mean,
Yeah.
we get introduced to the idea of fate in the first episode, so what if some things other are fated in this world? And something you'd wish upon someone approaching you, hey, I'll give you magical girl powers and a wish, you just have to fight these creatures. Like, we know from what Mommy gives to Sayaka and Madoka that what she gives to them is a reality check of you will be fighting for your life
Mhm.
and for your wish and for other people every single day.
Yeah.
You will be isolated. You will have no friends. You won't have time for after school curriculars. Like, you will be completely alone and have to be going on walking around. Like, she walks around the city like every night.
Yeah.
Or she did, because she's dead now. Walks around the city every night
territory.
alone, the territory,
Town.
protecting it. And every time she goes into a labyrinth, she's risking the chance that not only she dies, her wish is gone, but also her territory is then at risk. All the people that are within her territory, the burden and responsibility of having to protect the lives of all of these people. We saw her do it with grace,
Yeah.
but I feel like a lot of people, if they were given, as what we saw in this episode, Mommy gave a great gift to Madoka and Sayaka with the fact that they both turned back on their feelings that they were going to do it.
Yeah.
And then Kyubey left. What Mommy did for them is what Homura was trying to do for them, but Mommy was like, let me show you directly. Let
Yeah.
me give you real life experience.
But the only thing that truly caused them to change was the death of Mommy.
Right.
And like,
Which
if-
was not intentional on Mommy's end.
yeah, but if that's what it would have taken to make the, like, let's say that neither of them, or at least one of them, didn't have a change of heart within the moment on top of the roof that Kyubey leaves, then I would say, okay, well, like it or not, Homura, your approach to shit, it doesn't really work. But the idea that regardless, if Mommy survives that interaction and they make the wish, they still don't know that in another universe they wouldn't have made it after seeing what death really means in front of them. God,
And they're
I
also
love
so
Homura.
young. And as Sayaka has pointed out, they're both fools. They have no idea what suffering is, to the point where they can't even think of a wish. That they have no grasp of what true pain feels like. Are they willing to put their bodies, they don't know what they're
Yeah.
signing up for in terms of what they're going to be putting their bodies through. And psychologically what they're going to be putting their minds through. They have no they are just I don't want to say this word, but they are virgins to the real world. They are just kids who have never had anything bad happen to them. They are naive is a better word. There we go.
Innocent.
That's how I said I didn't want to say it, but it was the word that came to mind. They are so innocent to any type of suffering that the blow would hit them even harder. Like Homura, it obviously is at a point where she doesn't cry at seeing a magical girl die because she's seen so many magical girls die.
I do think that there is like a gradient to it though, because look at how Madoka's responding versus look at how Sayaka's responding.
Mhm.
Like, and I think that Sayaka's responding in a lesser explosiveness of emotion because of what she's already been through emotionally with Kamijo. There's been like, unfortunately, forced emotional growth and realization of what the real world is,
Mhm.
whereas the protagonist is more innocent. I'm going to
Right.
use that word.
Like Sayaka is in this situation where it is for her to cry over someone she's known for a couple days in comparison to her watching this boy that she cares so much about suffering every single day in a hospital bed that she's known since she was a child.
Yeah.
The weight of those things are obviously different. She is watching suffering. She's watching someone else go through pain that it seems like Madoka obviously has lived a very like sheltered life in terms of like not been around a lot of death, not been around a lot of stress, probably does okay in school. If not, she has good friends. Her parents love her. You know, financially they're stable. She always has like a home cooked amazing meal on the table. She's not alone. She has a life full of love. Her life is rather mundane. She goes to school, she hangs out with her friends. Sayaka, in comparison, she goes to school and she hangs out with her friends, and we don't know what her home life is, but when she gets out of school, she immediately goes to the hospital and visits and like searches for things that'll make this person happy,
Mhm.
music that'll make this person happy, goes to sit by their bedside and hear them complain, if you will, about their situation and be there to support them. You're right to bring up that there's a lot more kind of emotional growth that's already been done on Sayaka's part.
Yeah. Okay. We got so much more to talk about.
I know, we're so early. How many minutes are we even in?
Well, we
to the
went out of
episode?
order for a lot. We went on a
Oh,
tantrum.
a little bit.
Okay, so 4 minutes in to the episode, I throughout this scene right now, if we can try to put it on the screen in editing, it's God, it's so emotional. It's Madoka like crying in front of her family, but something that is highlighted throughout this entire episode, but this is the first instance that I was really like, holy shit, is the score. The music is phenomenal. Like, it's so otherworldly, but the tone that it's conveying, you can easily identify a song that's piano or very simplistic sometimes as being a happy song or a sad song, but through a moment like this that's very tragic and depressing, there's like a whimsical nature to the song that's like otherworldly that gives the same type of twisted
Mhm.
energy that the entire narrative and plot of the show is giving.
Mhm.
One of the only things that I can compare it to for me is which in my opinion is the highest praise I can give a soundtrack for a show, is Made in Abyss. It's phenomenal, and in a similar way throughout this entire episode, there's so much emotional weight being like amplified because of the soundtrack, and I think it's phenomenal. It's so good.
I think that you're right to bring up that high praise. I think that Made in Abyss was one of the best scores that I've heard in a show where it felt like that was given as much time and attention and love as everything else was.
Yeah.
and that it was supposed to be a piece on its own of art. And this is the first instance that I'm really like, my thoughts are going so heavily to, oh my gosh, the score. Like in other shows, there are moments, there are times where the score and what's happening emotionally on the screen match up in this beautiful way that we comment on, or we talk about, or we just feel it inside of ourselves, like, oh, that was perfect right
Yeah.
there, what they did. But I would say this show, it's really great to bring up those two shows in comparison to each other with the score and with the music, because I've been like enamored with it in Madoka Magica. Like this whole episode, you're right that there is this, I think you used these words earlier, of like grittiness,
Mhm.
like this twisted, this grunge, this eerie, this whimsical. It reminds you of the lore of fairies, where you're not like, fairies are these cute magical creatures, but in so many stories they whisk you away, or they switch out the, what is that called when they switch out a baby? Why am I blanking?
When they
Fairies like
switch out
kidnap a baby and replace it
Yeah.
with one of, there's a word for it.
Swapping?
No, there's a word for the creature, like what it's called when.
Oh, like a skinwalker?
No. No, not a skinwalker. I am gonna be so mad at myself. I'm gonna think about what it is as soon as I exit this room, or maybe even 5 minutes later in the discussion.
Okay, but point is,
The point is that there is this cuteness, they play with this very like lullaby childhood. There's these little chime sounds
Mhm.
that feel very like like we whimsical, but it's like eerie, and it's beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna end there. Changelings.
I've never heard that before.
Is that not what it is?
I-
Okay, it
I
might
don't
not be
know.
what it is.
But I do love like this like the gritty nature of the show. I don't know what it is, man. Like the only thing I can compare it to that we've recently watched is Steins Gate. I don't know if it's a studio. I don't know if it's the time that it's come out, but there's something about just everything about it. Music, art style, pacing that is like it's just what I love, and I really
I feel like you were about to say peak.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
If you were, you should have gone with it.
Speaking of peak, around I think my favorite moment out of this entire episode, probably not my favorite moment because that hasn't happened yet. That's Sayaka. But one of my favorite moments is right here, 4 minutes and 39 seconds in. It's Madoka trying to have a conversation with Sayaka about what happened to Mommy. And I thought that this was so compelling. It's right when she turns around and starts to like telepathically say Sayaka about yesterday. And the second that Sayaka hears it, she immediately responds, "Sorry, but can we talk about it later?" while running up past Madoka and joining Hitomi. I thought that was such an interesting like way of conveying where Sayaka was at with this whole thing. You know what I mean?
That their characters aren't necessarily in the same place emotionally, which could lead into our conversation about Sayaka in terms of like emotional growth or innocence being ahead of Madoka
Yeah.
in terms of what she's experienced indirectly or directly. And I think that is a really that moment shows a lot and speaks a lot, that she runs ahead instead of running next to Madoka and just bringing up another conversation amongst the friends. She literally passes Madoka and goes next to Hitomi.
Yeah. It brings it into the conversation that they're having on the roof without Hitomi. Where Sayaka is saying it's like we're seeing and living in an entirely different world from them, from everybody else. And then Sayaka's like, and Madoka's like, "Sayaka, are you okay?" Because Sayaka's absolutely, God, she's so cool. But our world had already been changed long before this. We should have realized that sooner. Like that's in like, I could be misreading it here, but I'm interpreting it as like touching on what happened to Kamijo and like the tragedy of what world they live in and what grief can be brought, you
Right.
know?
And she didn't really realize, kind of how she was living and how she was feeling about the world in comparison until the moment the magical girl subject was introduced into the story. I mean, when she has that monologue and she's looking out at the skyline and thinking about who she is and that she's been an innocent fool, that is a growth moment.
Yeah.
That's her realizing she's had her eyes closed to suffering.
Yeah. What do you think of Madoka's like change of heart here, right? Like, obvious, not through the lens of like, oh, I understand why she changed her mind now, but it even seemed like during the episode when it happened, I was like feeling energy from you, being surprised that it changed the way that it did. Like, it seemed like you were expecting almost to think that this is the point that she would waver from Sayaka and double down and say, I gotta do this.
So there's a line where they actually kind of say to each other if they're against it, and there was like a pause, and I 100%, okay, so she starts to, I'm gonna look for it because I was reading into it a certain way at first, and you're right that I was surprised. So they talk about how kind-hearted Mommy was to make us really understand what kind of resolve we needed in order to fight. She hey Kyubey, what's going to happen to this town? It's when they like declare whether they're going to do it or not, and there was a pause, and I want to find where it was. Just like the transfer student, it's true that magical girls like Mommy are rare. Yeah, she was. Most do approach witch hunting for their own benefit. It's natural for people to want to be rewarded for their work. Oh, that's a good line. The only one that should judge, the only people, he believes that the only ones that could have the right to judge the actions of the magical girls are fellow magical girls who bear the same destiny they do.
Yeah.
I really like that line. I tried to write it down and I couldn't get it fast enough.
It's, I don't know, it's hard. Like, I like the line, but it's like somewhat twisted dependent on Kyubey's, narrative.
I agree with not judging someone that you can't truly understand what they go through, and you're not in the same position.
So what's the line that you're looking for? Like, what's the overall like idea behind it? Not like what words are meant, because I think I might be able to help you find it if I have a little more context.
It's like there's a pause, and they're like, oh yes, that was I can't even remember exactly what it was, but it was this moment where there was this saying of talking about it as the negative, a pause, and I expected her to be like, she was saying like, is it bad that I?
So I think
so
what
it
you're
gives the
referring
feeling
to
of, like,
is earlier in the episode, right after Sayaka begins to talk about how like the world's different and that they should have realized this sooner. I think it's right after that where Sayaka poses the question, do you still want to be a magical girl even now? Right?
Yes.
And then
we should
shows
see
Kyubey.
Kyubey's face. So as I hear this question and I see Kyubey's face, I'm definitely thinking, there's a long pause.
And then
Yeah, I
Sayaka
know.
answers for her. Like,
But she says
gets
something
it.
after, I think. Well, I can't blame you. I know it's unfair. So, okay, right before she said that, I know it's way too selfish. So, like, when she said, I know it's unfair, my mind went, like, they're on separate pages here, and or Sayaka knows that Madoka will say yes anyway, even though what they've gone through, and she knows it's unfair to put other people through worrying about her.
Yeah.
That's the territory I was going. I did not think that we were going to have Kyubey leave and Madoka not actually want to become a magical girl. I thought that because she had such a strong resolve of why she wanted to be a magical girl to Mommy last episode, that I didn't think that would waver from seeing Mommy die.
Yeah.
And so I took that I know it's unfair or I know it would be selfish as her being like, I still want it.
Do you think that's because you've seen other magical girls anime?
It's probably because I keep waiting for her to become a magical girl.
Well,
you know?
to me, like the second that she's like, it's unfair, I'm like, she has been told by Kyubey about how much potential she has.
Yeah.
Therefore, she knows how many people she could probably save.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfair.
Yeah. See, I'm reading into it with this not totally processing it and perceiving it as it's intended
Yeah.
or how I should be, because I'm in this lens of trying to be like, oh, now she's going to be a magical girl, because I'm too expecting of that moment. And it wouldn't have been a total surprise to me if, in the nature of her innocence, she would have still wanted to do it because of what resolve she already said she had of what wish she would have made, because she already knew what wish she'd make, and because she declared to mommy that, like, she wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was going to change.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it went differently, even though obviously I am worried about Sayaka. So
one thing that I thought was interesting was, like, leaving that conversation, Kyubey was saying that it, like, okay, I understand. It's not like I can make you do it.
yeah.
And then says, I'd better go search for girls with greater need to make a contract with
I
me.
wrote that down.
And knowing what happens too later in the episode, I want to talk about two different things. One, the greater need to make a contract with me. Like, it's saying in our face. Like, it comes from a place of, like, which is wild. It comes from a place of somebody needs to be in a position that they are desperate enough or last ditch enough that they will 100% say yes to it, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
And that alone is scary.
You're preying on them.
Well, yeah, but it's like if you went up to a person in the real world and you're like, okay, you can wish for literally anything, as long as you do this. I feel like there's a handful of people there that is like, oh, fuck yeah, let's do it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that's real, hell yeah, let's do it. But to even Kyubey themselves be portraying it in a way with a greater need to make a contract with me, I'm wondering how many people say no, you know?
Right.
It's interesting.
No, well, he did say to them that not many girls say no.
Yeah.
Not many girls even have the luxury to say no. I think we talked about this prior when we got introduced to the idea of hearing about Madoka's soul gem being, like, really big. This idea that might have a correlation to, like, their strength, like the wish that they make might have a correlation to their strength. And so then inherently you would want to search for girls with a great need, because then they would have maybe a greater wish. And
What
the
if-
power of the wish affects how powerful they are?
What if it's that the less they need it, the more powerful they are? Like, we're talking about Madoka's innocence,
Mhm.
right? And she's the one who's been identified with the greatest potential, not Sayaka, who is next to her, who has more of a wish to make.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that could be part
But
of it.
even both of them, I mean, even Sayaka is still not the same as someone like Mommy or someone who Kyubey is kind of referring to as people
Yeah.
who aren't given the luxury. Sayaka could totally decide to not give this to Kamijo, to not do it for him, and just to, because it's not a wish for her, it's a wish for someone else. So it's still the same, it's in the same lane as what Madoka would want to do, which is a wish for herself, but also just so that she could be someone that could help other people.
I just think it's fascinating that Kyubey can show up and hear at the instant a person is at their emotional and situational, like, crux, height,
Mhm.
like, period. Like, so obviously what happens with Sayaka later, it gets to an exploding point. And let's say that it was seeing in the future in the first episode, and we know that Madoka would make a contract because of seeing somebody like Homura in danger. It's like the root of this character's, like, desire, where that desire and need to make a contract would come from, being at its most heightened moment. What the second point that I wanted to get to, though, I think it's so interesting that the offer doesn't go away. Like, it seems like even though Kyubey walks away, it's still like, oh, I can change my mind at any moment
Mhm.
through Sayaka's actions later on.
Mhm. And just how does this creature know?
Yeah.
Has a sense for it.
I thought that it was awfully sad that Madoka went to Mommy's house afterwards and, leaving there, seeing Homura on their walk home, what was your interpretation of Homura saying that kindness could bring about a greater tragedy?
Well, I don't know. All I can get into with that in terms of trying to start understanding it is if all of the other magical girls are working selfishly and independently, then someone whose reason for existing as a magical girl being uniting everyone and protecting people, and that they want to do this for the greater good and to be someone that is worthy of protecting others and worthy of keeping the world safe, that inherently goes against what is already the system in place, which is inherently selfish.
Okay.
That's all I can get at the
Interesting.
moment, because I can't understand why else. Maybe someone so pure-hearted would make the witches more active. I don't know.
I want to touch upon that a little later, but I really want to talk about the Kamijo scene where he breaks and he's like, "Are you torturing me?"
Totally.
to
Can we
Sayaka.
go back to that scene afterwards, though? The
Yeah,
one
yeah.
where they're walking home?
Yeah.
I just have some quotes.
We can do it now.
No, if you're like really wanting to talk about the comic.
Let's go back. It'll be. I don't want to forget your point.
They're just quotes I wrote down.
Okay.
It's not really a point. So if you're like being fueled right now to talk about Kamijo, I want you to go for it.
Okay. So, I cannot fathom what it would be like to be in this position. I know that it's an anime character in front of me, but man, there are people out there in our world that are in similar situations, if not the same, you know? And it's mind-blowing to me for this character who I don't even know, being Kamijo, them even asking and questioning what Sayaka is doing here and if it's torture. It's so believable to me. It's so raw, and I just think it's really well done.
I think that this whole scene and him asking her these questions is proof to what she already starts to realize in the elevator at the beginning of this episode, which is the harsh words of mommy resonating with her about, does she even know what he wants?
Mm-hmm.
And what she's been doing here is this her decision of what she thinks would be best for him, or what she thinks he would want, or what she thinks would make him happy. And maybe it's just because it's making her happy to come listen to this music with him.
Yeah.
In that same way of, why would you give the wish to him or do it for him? Is it because you want praise from him? And I think that bringing that idea back with him getting angry is really awesome. Like, it really drives it home of, you don't know what he wants.
It's really tough because if a doctor straight up tells you, yo, there's no hope, like, crush that dream right now. On one hand, it's very like, well, that doesn't help in terms of like placebo, and you know that people who go into things with a better mentality could come out of it in a better way. But also, if it really is that bad, then I could see a point of view that it's like, well, you have to try to start coming to terms with that and getting over that now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the point that Kamijo's at right now is so is so upsetting that he, going forward, if a wish wasn't to have happened, there would be a day in his life that I think that he would apologize for doing this in front of Sayaka and saying, I know that's not what you were trying to do. Like, this is where I'm at with trying to process that I'm never going to be able to do this thing I love again.
Mm-hmm.
What will it do to Kamijo and his character being at this breaking point and then having the fix given to
Right.
him?
This is it's that idea of the true test of a character, true suffering. Like, he could have become a strong, like, are we taking away his chance at becoming a stronger individual
I don't know.
and a more self-loving individual? Are we taking away personal growth from him?
Obviously, in any world, if I could snap my fingers and be like, okay, this is fucked up that this was taken away from you, it should never have happened, here it is back. But I wonder if going forward it is going to change his character and how he interacts
Right.
with Sayaka, because it doesn't seem like the first thing on Kamijo's mind is a romantic relationship with Sayaka, and obviously we've gotten the idea touched upon of what do you expect, if anything, out of it. Is it, like, you shouldn't be making a wish in hopes that he would love you or
Yeah.
be so grateful to you that he's infatuated with you. And if this results with Kamijo being able to be back on stage and then forgetting about Sayaka, what then?
I want to go into that because the reason she's been having this relationship with him is because he's stuck in a hospital bed. She's having contact with him and their friendship is growing through her being able to visit him because he's not off going and performing on stages across the country.
Mhm.
He's not incredibly busy as I would imagine a prodigy violinist would be.
Yeah.
His life is going to go back to being hustle and bustle and incredibly busy, and she won't have that same, what she deems as these special moments of closeness where she's getting his undivided attention and getting to just be with him.
Mm.
That's going to be gone. So right, has she thought about what would actually happen if he got to use his fingers again? Is she totally okay with what the aftermath would be? She's being given this opportunity, this contract in a moment where she just saw him bloody
Yeah.
himself. Has she even had time to think about truly what mommy said about, like, are you sure this is what he wants?
Do you think Kamijo will know that, like, this was done by Sayaka? Because for some reason I feel like he won't, or at least that's what I'd expect from this kind of trope or genre.
I would say because of the I'd use for evidence that there is an overwhelming theme and being brought up a lot of isolation and secrets,
Mm.
that it is going to be an isolating thing for Sayaka, that she is the one that helped him. She is the one that saved what he desires most and granted him this wish, but he can never know and he will never know.
Yeah.
And you can't have that gratification, you can't have that praise and that reward of him loving you back,
Yeah.
and that is going to be more isolating.
God, Kyubey showing up outside of that window. Okay, what do you want to talk about that happened before this?
There were a few quotes. I really liked this quote, and so I just needed to say it. If they did, this is obviously not the direct quote. I was writing it down very quickly. Paraphrasing. If they did criticize you, I wouldn't permit it. By Homura. I was like, I wouldn't permit it. Ooh.
I love Homura.
I love that, like, word choice, that, like, way to say it. It felt like she is going to, like, firemen carry you out of a burning building, and I was like, I like this.
Well, in the same way that I appreciate, like, what Sayaka can speak from, that's what gives my love for Homura. I also think it, like, fuels my skepticism in Kyubey, because I trust Homura, whether correct or not to do so, and the fact that she was chasing Kyubey down a fucking hall and trying to kill him makes me more curious of him and more suspicious of him.
Mhm.
Anything else?
Nope. Just my last thing that I had written was just because I was so flabbergasted about the fact that mommy will forever remain a missing person.
Jesus
forever,
Christ.
no body. And then eventually people will realize she's missing, but it'll be a cold case, forever missing person.
Jesus, that I don't think I've ever seen, like, a fictional story with that type of, I don't know. I can think of something in Hunter x Hunter that was like, oh, this could potentially happen, and these characters and their bodies could potentially never be seen or heard from again because of that magic system,
Mhm.
but nothing anywhere close. God.
When I was watching it, I was grabbing from ReZero.
Mm.
There's an idea in there of not of a person's body being missing forever, but, like, other aspects of them being forgotten.
Yeah,
And so that's what I was, like, grabbing from
that's true.
in terms of, like, relating different mediums media to another media.
So, gosh, I'm so excited to get to one point. Okay, so going forward, right?
Okay.
When we see that Hitomi has a witch's kiss,
Mhm.
this was, like, one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen. All these people in the room trying to like Heaven's Gate it and pouring chemicals into a bucket. It did provide one of the most interesting shots of the series so far for me, though, which was Madoka running and the
bucket?
cameras in the bottom of this bucket looking up at her.
I like that too. There is a really great shot after that, and it's when she breaks through the window and is like looking up out of the shattered window.
Yeah.
And it is so creepy.
It's
it is
so
horror movie.
interesting.
I'm gonna wave just to make sure it's included. The glass looks almost wet in how it's shattered, but the look on her face looks horrified.
The scale is so unique. Like, look at her hand in comparison to like her arm and shoulder. It's so, and her other hand. Like, look at that shit.
This
That's
shot
so
just, like,
interesting.
It screams the creepy energy that's happening. I do have a question though. What are these chemicals? Like, are they normal bathroom chemicals? Like, I was like trying to figure, because they looked like a shampoo and conditioner bottle when
Bleach
the mom was
compared
like,
to shampoo. I
but
don't
why
know.
are why? I guess you'd put bleach in the bathroom. Why would they be in similar bottles
Yeah,
and
I
not
got you.
labeled?
Like, I think that criticizing the production company for making this bleach, this deadly chemical, looking so similar to a safe one, I guess it depends on which came first and which came after. You know, like, what if a shampoo company went out of their way to make their bottle, you know?
I bet they're
But
being sued.
I think that's legitimate.
They're totally being sued.
Probably.
There have been like some wrongful death lawsuits out there against whoever created these bottles looking so similar.
This is the best Labyrinth yet.
You think?
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, other than ripping Madoka into multiple pieces where I thought that our
Into
main
these-
character died for a
Like
split
bubbles.
second. Seeing, like, the characterization of Madoka here is one of my favorite things in the series,
I
hands
love
down.
how she's drawn. I
Like, the
love it.
palette knife, oh my god, it looks so great!
No line art. She looks it's so fluid. I love it.
Oh, it's fantastic. I think it gets better too, if I'm not mistaken, as it gets closer up to her. God, we're seeing all these moments of mommy.
Mhm. On these screens.
I don't know when else to bring it up. Maybe another time later, but fuck it. So, Homura.
Okay.
Have we ever seen her go out of her way to go into a labyrinth and defeat a witch other than interactions that have to do with Madoka that have already started?
No.
We've only really seen her go after Kyubey, right?
Mhm.
Now, I had a question while watching this. Like, what the fuck does it mean that in this labyrinth we are seeing memories of what traumatized or what was so traumatic to Madoka through mommy, right? Like, how the fuck does that work? Is the witch able to go into your, you know, consciousness, see your memories and thoughts, and being able to twist them to cause you the most pain? Probably, potentially. That being said, that kindness could bring about a greater tragedy.
Mhm.
Shot in the dark, crazy fucking... What if this witch is mommy? What if when you kill a magical girl, they become a witch, or their power is being absorbed by a witch? And the idea that Madoka, who has this great potential, becoming a magical girl, but then dying, could breed a bigger problem than anything else. You know? Even letting her become a magical girl could give the opportunity for her death to happen within a labyrinth.
Because it almost seems inevitable that magical girls
Yeah.
will die. I like the theory just for
It's
fun.
definitely out there,
I like
yeah.
it for fun that the idea that these magical girls could become witches, and that's because we don't have a total kind of context of exactly how witches came to be.
Yeah.
And all we're really given is their existence is here to prey upon people,
Mhm.
you know, and lead to destruction and chaos and sadness.
I don't think that's the case, but I think it's interesting. God, I love this shot so much. The TV's coming towards Madoka, and then it, like, shows herself from a different angle inside the TV screen. It is so cool, man.
This whole I like this labyrinth a lot.
This labyrinth is sweet.
She gets
Okay,
her
this is
line
when I
art
liked
back.
it.
Okay.
Like, this is when I said that it got better. It's when they did draw the outlines on her, right?
Mhm.
So no outlines. Then the second that Sayaka comes in like a badass, we get some outlines on Madoka here.
She like pops back into it. There's,
But
like,
it's
this
different
movement.
than its normal art style. It's so cool looking. Oh my god. Sayaka's such a badass, bro. She has a cape. She looks like a Fire Emblem character.
She does look like a fire.
She looks like
character.
a cooler Lucina. Look at her. So do you think that, like, look, there's a picture. Oh, okay.
And now that Sayaka has appeared in the labyrinth, now memories that she's involved in are appearing on the screen.
Do you think Sayaka, like, the instant that you're able to make a contract, you are given, like, physical prowess as well? This is her first fight and she's kicking ass.
Well, she seemed pretty capable
What
with
a
that
cool
bat
shot.
when she went in the labyrinth.
With the bat?
Yeah, she was pretty
true.
capable
You are
with the
very
bat.
right.
So I think she just already was pretty talented. I feel like on any like sports festival days, she was the one everyone like was rooting for.
God.
Were you surprised that her weapon, her magical girl weapon, was not the bat that Mommy made for her?
I did not think it was going to be the bat that Mommy made for her.
I was a little bit surprised because I thought like that's so iconic to give for their like weapon to be something that like sentimentally means something to them.
Yeah.
Or has already been, it was already shown to us in the series. So I think I was like, yeah, that's definitely what her weapon would look like. And so I was surprised when it wasn't a bat, it was a sword.
So I know that I'm beating a dead
It's a dead
horse.
horse. That's
That's
the
so
saying.
sad,
That's a
though.
you don't like that. I would think you would hate that saying.
Damn.
I mean,
don't
sayings exist for a good reason. Like it's easy to get your point across.
Yeah, it's
because
just
they're
so
iconic
sad.
and everyone knows them.
I
but
know.
some of them are upsetting.
I feel like even after saying the idea out loud that magical girls become witches after death, I feel like that's more ridiculous after saying it out loud. So I acknowledge that it's ridiculous and probably just nothing. But like watching Sayaka murder this thing and its corpse bounce to us, where like each frame is different too. It's so cool. Like it gives like yellow and white and red, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I'm like, damn it. In the beginning of the episode, Madoka was looking at a yellow and white egg and focusing on the yellow, and that was the parallel to the idea of Mommy, and Mommy's here again. I know that it's not there, but
I like the idea of the yolk of the egg being similar.
look at Homura standing in front of a crescent moon.
As if she's standing on the crescent, but this isn't Sailor Moon, so we're not going to get like iconic images.
Is that a thing?
exactly like no, just like like the Sailor Moon like logo, like there's the moon and then she's like sitting on it.
What do you think? I would love to know how you're able to choose your weapon, or it's just like bestowed upon you from some greater power.
She's the knight. She's Kamijo's knight.
Look, what do you think Homura's response is really going? Okay, another great point. Sayaka bringing up, aren't you pretty late? Like, what the fuck took... obviously Homura could have just been further away, but the idea of not seeing Homura fight many witches... Do you think Homura would have been able to save Madoka here?
Yes.
Yeah? If Sayaka never showed up?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I think your question though is really good on trying to decipher, because it feeds into why is Homura here?
Yeah.
Why did she transfer here? We don't really see her actively hunting the witches. You were right
At least
to bring
on
up,
screen.
Yeah, you were right to bring up like every instance that a witch and Homura have been in the same place. Her focus when the witch was around at first when she was chasing Kyubey, it was kind of like, this is being an interruption to what she had wanted, which was to like go after Kyubey.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to share the grief seed. Like she doesn't get involved when they're in that place with the person that was about to commit suicide. She doesn't interfere there or jump in the labyrinth with them. She only does at the hospital because it's so strong.
Mm-hmm.
She only interferes then because all three of them are in there and this is like, they're underestimating it.
Yeah.
And then she keeps the grief seed for herself, but we don't see her use it.
Yeah. The idea of this conversation between Kyoko and Kyubey pisses me off entirely because I know where it goes. But Kyubey's like, I didn't think you'd come. I heard old mommy had bought it, so I came all this way. I like to imagine that there's like, we know phones exist, right? And you can like in this universe, there's an entire like group chat or thread of just magical girls, and like there's like a flood of information and rumors and speculation about territory and like turfs, you know, when they're opening up because magical girls are dead. So interesting, man.
I feel like you might grow to like this character.
Why?
I feel like their personality is probably going to be spunky and entertaining, even if we dislike them at the moment for how they were talking about mommy. But like, remember what we're already getting set up here is that all of these girls at some point were coerced, if you will, into signing over their lives to be magical girls, fighting the witches forever.
I don't care.
Die.
I'll be petty. Fuck Kyoko.
Whatever she wished for is so important to her that she is willing to hurt other people for it.
You could be a magical girl and not want to kill someone else because they've taken over territory.
We don't know what her wish was. What if her
I
wish
wish that I'm an
like,
awful person. There you go. I made Kyoko.
What if her wish was to keep someone she loves alive? Like, and so obviously there's then that element of like, of course, the life of the person that she cares about is going to be more important to her than a random other person's life. And that her wish, her reason for dedicating herself to this was to keep this person alive. So she's going to continue doing that. And she doesn't want anything to get in the way of it.
Homura's not trying to kill Sayaka.
Well, we don't know what Homura's wish was.
Doesn't matter. Hate it.
So give her a moment. Everything's already going to be gritty and messed up, so...
Kyubey said sorry, but this territory's already been taken over by another magical girl in reference to Sayaka.
Mhm.
It might just be like trying to dive into a specific wordage when it's being translated into English, but it's interesting that is now the case, even though that Homura's around. You know?
Right.
And it's not Homura's territory.
Mm-mm.
Weird. Interesting.
I still don't think she made a contract with Kyubey. I think there has to be other creatures out there that are doing this.
Oh, I agree. I think that there are probably other creatures.
It could be that none of Kyubey's girls had this territory, you know? So he wouldn't consider Homura in this phrasing because he's only talking about like this territory was one of his girls had this territory.
Yeah. I can't believe you like
The shot
you're defending
of her...
Kyoko.
I'm telling you to keep an open mind because we're already being introduced to a world where people are having gone through some fucked up shit and are being preyed upon by this little magical cat and are a lot of the time fighting for their life to keep some type of wish alive that could be incredibly selfless.
Yeah. So
just keep an open mind.
She brought a bat. She's introspective. She has a sword and a cape.
You don't need to introduce me to the Sayaka fan club.
Also, like, there's only one thing to do. I'll put the new girl out of commission. I already get what you're trying to say. You're going to kill her. Why do you have to say permanently? Why is that necessary?
I wanted to do this weird shot of her mouth, like, and switching.
I bet she's gonna have a dumb power. I'm not even gonna like it.
I bet you're gonna see her and you'll be like, I don't think she's cool at all, and like pretend that you're not actually.
Where do magical girls have fights? Like, if
how do you put a magical girl out of commission?
Does it have to take place within a labyrinth? Can anybody see a magical girl's like weapon or clothing? Can that transformation only occur like inside of like that type of environment?
We do get very specific information that a magical girl's body would only be would only disappear if they died in the labyrinth. So that says to me that a magical girl could also die outside of a labyrinth.
Yeah, but like, whereas we can, like, humans who aren't don't have the potential to be a magical girl can't see this witch shit,
Mm-hmm.
can humans see the magical girl shit who don't have that potential? You know, that's what my question is.
That's a good question.
I cannot wait for Sayaka. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Sayaka's gonna die. I don't want it to happen, but I think.
Do you
I
feel
think,
like that's needed?
Do I think it's needed?
Yeah, plot wise.
No.
Writing.
But I think it's gonna happen, and I'm gonna be sad.
Why do you think it?
Why do I think it's gonna happen?
Yeah. Just a feeling?
A little bit just a feeling, a little bit. I think that they'd introduce the idea of her dying from Kyoko to subtly subvert that that's not how she might actually die, or at least in those like simplistic of terms. But I don't know. No, I have no reason. Maybe it is just a feeling, because I didn't think Mami was gonna die and Mami died, and I don't want Sayaka to die, and I think that they're gonna make me sad.
I just gotta say, if she does die,
Done with this show.
what she's doing to Kamijo then
Mm-hmm.
has no mobility in his hands. He has to start going through some type of healing emotionally that he won't ever get to do it again. And then for like a couple weeks, he'll get to do it again, and then she'll die, and she'll go missing. Yes. And then he'll no longer be able to do it again. That roller coaster he'd be on, he'd be like broken. Did she think about that? Like,
Depends
she
on.
might grant him this now, but what if you die?
It depends on Kamijo's actual feelings for Sayaka, because I feel like I don't know those yet. You know?
And if he knew that she had done it for him?
Yeah. Alright, that's all I have you.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.